Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. And today or tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world, is when Deep Purple's quite long-awaited new album Equals One comes out, and I've had the opportunity to listen to it all front to back, and I'm really, really pleased with it. Everyone knows that the golden age of Deep Purple was when both Ritchie Blackmore and Jon Lord were in the band. And between those two, there were many different lineups, comings and goings, of singers, of bass players, and even at one point a guitarist, because Blackmore briefly left in the mid-70s. The great Tommy Bolin came in and did Come Taste the Band. Then the band stopped, came back in the 80s with Perfect Strangers, and they were back on form with that classic Mark II lineup. But the 90s brought a lot of turbulence because first Ian Gillan left, and Joe Lynn Turner from Purple, from where am I? Sound like Joe Biden. And Joe Lynn Turner from Rainbow came into Deep Purple because the color purple is a color in the rainbow, and hence my confusion. And they did their Slaves and Masters LP. Then Blackmore came back for one album. Then he left for good. Joe Satriani completed a tour because Blackmore left in the middle of that tour in 91. And then Steve Morse came in as the permanent replacement, and things started to stabilize. But in 2002, Jon Lord made the decision to take an amicable retirement from the band. He remained on good terms with everyone because he was always a gentleman in his life, and he sadly died several years ago. Steve Morse left the band. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, but quite recently, when his wife fell seriously ill and she sadly died as well. But he's doing his own thing now. Steve Morse, a wonderful guitar player, his solo career, his stuff with Dixie Dregs, kind of more of a jazz rock fusion guitar player than your classical blues based hard rock guitar player, the way Ritchie Blackmore was. So he came from a very different angle. But it was with him that I think the best post Blackmore and post Lord album was recorded. And this was, I think, in 2015, and it was called Now What? And it was a wonderful album. And I think one of the reasons it was so good was because it was cast as a kind of tribute to Jon Lord. So the band really gave it their all. Well, the good news is that I think Equals One is, along with Now What, the best post Blackmore, and for that matter, post Lord album that Deep Purple have done. It's really, really got a lot of variety, but at the same time, in terms of the quality of performance, in terms of the commitment that each member is showing to the music, I think that it's really, really high. They've got, of course, a new guitar player in the band. I'm just going to look his name up because I wouldn't want to get it wrong. I thought it was Simon McBride. I really do mean that. But yes, it is Simon McBride, who's the new guitar player. And I think that much like the revelation that Jon Lord was no more gave the band a kind of shot in the arm to do more stuff and to really create a wonderful tribute in the form of Now What? I think changing guitar players this late in the career of a band that's been around since the 60s, I think that it inspired them to really make a statement saying that, look, we might well be on the verge of retirement, but we're not dead yet, as the parrot would say. I know that wasn't the parrot, that was the night, or Knight, I should say. It's just one of those days. But I really think the album is great. The two standout tracks are Pictures of You, which has already been released as a single, and then the album opener, a track called Show Me. I find those are really strong. Then there was another song also released as a single called Lazy Sod, which is kind of a play on the great song Lazy from the quintessential Deep Purple album Machine Head. Deep Purple, between the 90s and today, have released a lot of studio albums. And I think because of that, there's a tendency to associate the band with one that's sort of gone on autopilot, that they're just sort of, punching their card, mailing it in, call it what you will. And some of the albums in the post Blackmore and the post Lord era were that. But Now What? from almost 10 years ago. God, time flies. That album was really a classic. I would say an instant classic. I loved it straight away. A lot of Deep Purple fans loved it straight away, and it really still almost 10 years later really, really holds up. And this album, I think, really will too. If I had to choose, I think overall, maybe Now What is a bit stronger, but that's not to say anything about this. It's a really good album. And again, Pictures of You, I would consider that, frankly, an all-time Purple classic, even though it probably won't live in the annals of your Smoke on the Waters and your Perfect Strangers and your Child's in Time, or it should be Children's in Time if you're going to pluralize it, but you know exactly what I mean. Um, I would definitely encourage you to listen to it. Depending on what time zone you're in, it will be appearing, if it hasn't already, on your Spotify's, your Tidals, your Apples, your Amazons, and all of the rest of it. Take a listen to it, track one to the end, and really appreciate the unique styles of Simon McBride. He's different than Blackmore, different than Morse, very different than Tommy Bolin. He's his own man, and his contributions are definitely not an afterthought. I would say that he's a central part of the band. Certainly is the youngest man on this record. I definitely think that he interjected some youthful energy to a band that are long past what most people would call, either pension age or social security age, but you wouldn't know it because they play with remarkable consistency, dexterity, and passion. They're not mailing it in. They're going off into a rock and roll sunset with grace, with dignity, and with Ian Gillan's sense of humor better than it's ever been. Check out the album, support Deep Purple. Not that they need it, but hell, why not? They're great. And enjoy. Like, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.